The baby wasn't crying because he was hungry anymore. He had cried himself into silence. Wrapped in a faded cream blanket, the tiny infant rested weakly in his father's trembling arms as they stood under the harsh fluorescent lights of a supermarket. In the young father's shaking hand was a can of unopened baby formula, the only thing standing between his son and another empty night. But he wasn't buying it. He was returning it. His wallet held only $3, and he needed diapers more than hope. Across the store, a woman worth billions had just walked in for a routine inspection of one of the grocery chains she secretly owned. What she witnessed in the next few minutes would change not only one father's life, but everyone watching. Before we continue, if you believe kindness still has the power to change lives, and that everyone deserves a second chance, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment telling us where you're watching from, share this story with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to Bright Hearts for more unforgettable true-to-life emotional journeys. Elias Mercer had never imagined his life would collapse so quickly. Just 18 months earlier, he had been a respected construction supervisor with a stable income, a small rented home, and dreams of giving his growing family everything they deserved. Then a devastating workplace accident left him with a severe back injury. Months of recovery forced him out of work, medical bills piled up, and the company quietly replaced him. Before he could recover financially, tragedy struck again when his wife, Naomi, passed away unexpectedly after complications from childbirth, leaving Elias alone with their newborn son, Rowan. Overnight, grief became his permanent companion, and survival became his only goal. That afternoon, after counting every coin in his pocket several times, he realized the painful truth. The expensive baby formula he had bought 3 days earlier needed to be returned if they were going to afford diapers for the coming week. Rowan still had enough formula for one more day, but after that, Elias had no plan. Hope had become something too expensive to imagine. The media described Cassandra as one of America's youngest self-made billionaires. Her technology company had revolutionized supply chain logistics before she quietly expanded into grocery retail, healthcare investments, and charitable foundations. Newspapers celebrated her business achievements, yet few employees recognized her because she often visited stores dressed simply, avoiding publicity while observing how customers and workers were treated. 27 years earlier, Cassandra had watched her own widowed father silently return groceries at another supermarket after losing his job. She had never forgotten the shame in his eyes or the kindness shown by a cashier who secretly paid the difference without asking for recognition. That single act of compassion had stayed with her through every success she later achieved. Without revealing who she was, Cassandra quietly walked closer. Something inside Cassandra refused to let history repeat itself. She approached gently, introducing herself only as another customer. She asked whether she could buy the formula instead and donate it to a local shelter, allowing Elias to keep the money. Elias immediately declined. Pride, even when nearly broken, still survived. He thanked her kindly, but insisted he wasn't asking for charity. Cassandra admired that response. Instead of insisting, she noticed Rowan staring quietly toward the colorful toy section. The baby's wide eyes reflected complete trust in the only parent he had left. Cassandra realized she wasn't looking at poverty. She was looking at extraordinary love struggling against impossible circumstances. She asked Elias if he would allow her to buy them lunch. After several hesitant moments, he accepted, not because he wanted food for himself, but because Rowan needed another bottle prepared. They sat together in the small cafe inside the supermarket. Elias spoke honestly for the first time in months. He shared stories about Naomi, about losing his career, about sleepless nights worrying whether he was failing his son. He admitted that the hardest part wasn't being poor. It was feeling invisible, as though the world had stopped seeing him after tragedy arrived. Cassandra listened without interruption. She didn't offer motivational speeches. She didn't make promises. She simply listened, something very few people had done recently. By the end of the conversation, she quietly handed Elias a business card. There was no company logo on the front, only her name. Later that evening, after borrowing a neighbor's internet connection, Elias searched the name online. He froze. Every headline displayed the same face sitting across from him at lunch. The woman who had listened to his story wasn't an ordinary customer. She was one of the wealthiest women in the country. The following morning, Elias received an invitation to visit corporate headquarters. Terrified, confused, and wearing the only clean shirt he owned, he arrived carrying Rowan. He expected a formal meeting. Instead, Cassandra welcomed him personally. She explained that during their conversation, she had quietly verified his employment history, references, and professional qualifications. His former co-workers described him with one word repeated again and again: honest. Money could solve temporary problems, Cassandra said, but opportunity could transform generations. She offered Elias something he never expected. Not a donation. A career. One of her nonprofit housing initiatives needed someone to supervise affordable home construction projects for struggling families. The position included full healthcare benefits, flexible scheduling for single parents, childcare assistance, and a salary greater than he had earned before his accident. Elias couldn't speak. Tears quietly rolled down his face as Rowan laughed from his stroller, unaware that his future had just changed forever. News of the encounter spread through the company after employees learned why Cassandra had personally hired someone she met in a supermarket. Many assumed she had simply been generous. They were only partially correct. Within weeks, Cassandra introduced a new company-wide program called the Dignity Fund. Every grocery location under her ownership received emergency assistance resources for struggling families. Employees were trained to respond with compassion instead of judgment whenever customers faced financial hardship. Community partnerships connected parents with food banks, job placement services, childcare support, and temporary housing before crises became disasters. One father's painful afternoon inspired changes that eventually helped thousands. Elias embraced his new opportunity with unmatched determination. He supervised construction teams building homes for families escaping homelessness, domestic violence, and financial hardship. Every blueprint reminded him that walls protected more than people. They protected hope. Whenever he met exhausted parents carrying impossible burdens, he recognized the look immediately because he had once worn it himself. Years passed. Rowan grew into a cheerful, curious little boy who loved visiting construction sites wearing a tiny yellow safety helmet. He proudly told everyone his father built homes where families could smile again. One autumn afternoon, during the opening ceremony of the organization's 1,000th affordable home, Cassandra stood quietly near the back while Elias addressed the gathered crowd. He never mentioned wealth. He never spoke about miracles. Instead, he shared one simple truth. Sometimes saving someone's future begins by refusing to let them feel invisible. The audience rose in a standing ovation, many wiping tears from their eyes. Cassandra smiled quietly. The greatest investment she had ever made wasn't in technology or real estate. It had been believing in one exhausted father when the world had almost given up on him. If this story touched your heart, please like this video, share it with your friends and family, leave a heartfelt comment below, and subscribe to Bright Hearts. Your support helps us continue sharing stories that remind the world compassion is never wasted. Special request: before you leave, comment with the words, "Kindness changes lives," if you believe one small act of compassion can create a future no one could ever imagine. As the ceremony ended, Elias looked toward the crowd where Rowan, now smiling confidently, waved with both hands. In that moment, he understood something grief had hidden for years. The day he walked into that supermarket believing he had reached the end of hope was actually the first page of a completely different story. Not because a billionaire rescued him, but because one person chose to see the humanity behind his struggle. And sometimes, that single choice becomes the beginning of a miracle that echoes through countless lives long after the tears have dried.